Let's turn now to finding number two, which was also very interesting, which is one that we talked about quite a bit, and is again, it's a kind of a tale of two cities, if you will, or a tale of two slides in this case. And the first one that we found is that manufacturers maybe perhaps really don't know their real production potential. And if you look at this particular slide, almost 70% of respondents said they're meeting their full production potential. And yet, if you look at the right-hand side of this slide, it shows all the things that are blocking reaching potential. And so, as we talk about this particular one, I think a very interesting conversation here is around: is this a state of as is versus could be? What is the reason why 70% say they're at full potential, but in fact there are all these challenges still to overcome? And when we take a look at that, we asked the question, what does that mean? So in research that has been done by more than one organization now, including ARC, actually is part of this research, we know that there's in fact an unlocked capacity that often exists in manufacturing plants. And for many different reasons, it could be assumed to be permanently locked or to be unlocked. That's maybe the question we're going to try to address a little bit here today. But in fact, this concept of shadow capacity is important because if 70% of people think they're at full capacity, does that mean, in fact, that they've acknowledged that they'll never unlock shadow capacity? Don't want to jump to the answer too quickly, but it's kind of an interesting point of view. So let's let the audience ask your question. So as we talk about things that are blocking you from reaching your production targets over the next 18 months, take a moment, answer the question for your own organization. Are any of these things driving production, limiting your production capability, or preventing you from reaching your full capacity? We'd like to hear from you. And as we do that, we're going to take a look at the results as they start coming in. None yet. Hopefully, a few folks will start answering quickly. Let's see if I can refresh there. There we go. Starting to come out now. Interesting. So unplanned downtime so far. Unplanned downtime and supply chain issues are kind of running neck and neck so far. Good. Okay. Oh, no, now we have a new entry of outdated, unreliable manufacturing equipment. There we go. It's catching up with unplanned downtime. Sometimes those two things are kind of correlated a little bit. And give just one more minute, and then we will see the results. Okay. All right. So let's talk about that a little bit. Oh, we had last minute entry into the thing of customer demand becoming a more important user. So thank you for your answers there. We appreciate that. So great. So let's talk about that. Let's spend a little time on that. So, Dave, I'm going to start this one from your perspective. I found the point about we're at our full capacity interesting. What do you think about that finding, and what are the implications on continuous improvement and some of this concept of shadow capacity in your view?
Okay, so yeah, I think the thought, the people's perception that they're all full capacity is a point of stress, but also a lot of responses noticed there about they're still seeing things like unplanned downtime and substandard quality as major challenges. So that seems to be a potential conflict in some of that for me. And again, it's all about which lens we look through. I talk about perspectives quite a lot. So maybe people do feel they're at full capacity, maybe because they've exhausted, some of the more traditional improvement methodologies, the TPMs and manufacturing excellence or Lean Six Sigmas. The list is long and glorious, but a lot of those methodologies are around making small incremental improvements every day. And I would challenge that using some different technologies and techniques can help accelerate those journeys. How can we move that to more exponential steps rather than incremental steps? And can we unlock some new performance improvements through looking at it differently? I think another point with capacity, and I found this, during my lifetime in the industry, is one of corporate memory. I don't think a lot of corporations do very well at remembering things. So, do we often go back to first principles and say, when we first installed this line or this plant, let's go back to what we actually thought we were buying. What is our real theoretical maximum capacity based on the nameplate spec and the maximum available time of that equipment we purchased. And sometimes just digging back a little bit, you can unlock some of that, entrained latent or shadow capacity that's there. And also, capacity tends to deplete over time. Some of that is due to machine conditions. Some of that is due to what I call the normalization of deviance. Is it just that we've learned to accept that it only runs at 200 pieces a minute these days, when somebody who, maybe had been around a bit longer remembers when it did 250? Where do we go back to that? So that capacity depletion over time is often hidden, because the equipment can often be in place longer than most of the people that have surrounded it or worked on it. So we lack that ability to remember what our true capacity really is. And if we go back to some of those principles, but apply some different technologies and to try and get some different insights, I think there's real opportunity to unlock that. I know I have found that in the past.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. So, Brian, I want to bring you in at this point. Augury as a provider talks to a lot of executives. We talk to a lot of the manufacturers in this space, and a lot of them are included in this survey. As Augury talks to executives, how do you work with them to talk about this, unlocking this concept of shadow capacity? What does that look like as you talk to executives?
And a lot of it, thanks, and a lot of it does build on what Dave was saying. Is I think people have taught themselves, and sometimes over time, to expect limitations, and a couple of things that they can break through that. One is evidence from peers. Like, we're able to, because we work with so many manufacturers, we can show them what other people around them have accomplished. And sometimes there's skepticism, oh, that would never work here. But then when they actually get their hands on the technology and they have some early results, you can start to see some of the sometimes the biggest skeptics who said we can never make changes, this kind of technology will never work, quote unquote, in our place, suddenly start to see what's possible, and the light bulb goes off. And it's kind of like there was a period where people weren't sure if a person could run a mile in less than 4 minutes, and then once somebody did it, everybody started, not everybody, but more people started doing it. Is once you kind of show that some of these ceilings aren't really ceilings at all, but they're just constructs or limitations of insight or limitations of practice and policy, then suddenly we find our customers not only kind of catch up with what we're thinking, but they start inventing use cases of their own. And it gets very exciting for us to see what they're doing, but very exciting for our customers when suddenly they're stretching to levels of capacity or efficiency or sustainability that were probably maybe beyond what they thought was possible a very short time ago. So it's through their own eyes and their eyes of their peers that we think the biggest change happens.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. So Inderpreet, let's close this one out with you. What do you see in the industry as full production capacity? What do you see? How do you see people talking about that topic? And from the research you do, how should organizations be thinking about obtaining 100%? What does that look like from an analyst perspective?
Yeah, excellent insights by Dave and Brian. Very great. When I talk to end users, since I'm an asset management analyst, I tend to talk to a lot of people from the maintenance department. And over there, again, they are thinking from a maintenance perspective, and their biggest challenge, as seen in the survey as well, it's unreliable equipment, unplanned downtime. So they try with their strategies, their planning, how can they minimize the unplanned downtime so that they can maximize production. So they are always looking at production capacity from that perspective. They're not even thinking about production from the optimization lens. So I think, as the culture is changing and with the help of technology, when the maintenance departments can work closely with the production departments and they can have common goals, common strategies, I think that would be great to think of, okay, what is the new 100% capacity that we can now try to achieve once we have minimized the downtime, we have excellent production, how can we push the envelope further? I think that would be game changing, as we move into the near future.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And it's an important topic, right? This idea of non-siloed teams having joint goals is a wave of the future. So excellent.